Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today is the second day of the, formality to give a Dhamma talk, and tomorrow will be the third day, and then it will be the last one too. I think today I like to, based on one of the Buddhist texts. Actually, the Buddhist text was translated by the Kumarajiva. If someone know well about Kumarajiva, maybe yes, maybe no. But for those who are really study the Chinese Buddhism, or they know something about Chinese Buddhism, it is almost, there's no way you don't know the name of Kumarajiva. Of course, not in this Kumarajiva, they don't know. Kumarajiva in Chinese is 鸠摩罗什, because he's a Greek figure and very dramatic also. But I don't want to talk about him too much. If you're interested in the future, nowadays it's very easy. You can just Google, right? And what is the fact? And sometimes it's good to have a Google. You can look a lot of this reference, but also that doesn't mean that you don't need to study, because the more that you study, you might find sometimes the reference not necessarily accurate too. But however, you have a rough pictures. He was one of the very interesting figure because he's the earlier one who came to China, not the earliest, but an earlier one that had translated so many texts into Chinese. Now, today I'd like to use this text it serves one purpose. The purpose is because lots of people think Kumarajiva as a figure of Mahayana, and then people have a different type of romanticism about him. In other words, they might think that he is this way or that way. I'm not going to say that much because people criticize me later on. And I cannot speak for other persons. However, I like to say that then suddenly at one time, then Kumarajiva was asked that during about 408, okay? That means 5th century, earlier 5th century. So he was requested by one of the very prominent, powerful, very educated Chinese monk, said, you have to translate some of the Buddhist meditation texts for me. Actually, in other words, he had to instruct some meditation. Because of that request, at least that was recorded in one of our category, because in old days, the Chinese monk have to be really careful about which text is believed to be the authentic, which is not necessarily authentic. So that is a huge study. I'm not going to address the issue, but however, so that's why we have a lot of catalog in the old day. And then, according to the catalog, it said that actually Kumarajiva translated the text. It was a request by the monk called Shen Rui. Okay, the name is called Shen Rui Fa Shi. So, and then the text, meditation, Kumarajiva is a very well-educated monk. And he translated the text, you could say it's kind of like a notes, based on several very famous in old day meditation master. He translated the text into several of the meditation texts. Now, I just also pointed out in one way, Kumarajiva also understand very well meditation is one of the key things too. Okay, right. Now, I will base on one of the texts he translated about meditation. He's been translated at least directly directly addressing the issue how to meditate for at least 4 to 5 texts already. Okay. Now, today I'm going based on one of the texts. It's called the 坐禅三昧经, or maybe you could translate it as the Meditation Samadhi Sutra. Okay. That's in Chinese is 坐禅三昧经. Of course, for those of you, unfortunately, this has not been translated into English. So, but for those who read Chinese, if you're interested, you could Google and look at it also. According to this text, because I recently actually given this text, given a talk based on the text, reading text, in one of the temple in Flushing. So, it been once a month I went there to give a talk on this text. In other words, it's kind of reading class. Okay. Now, I'd like to just say something, introduce what the text, basically, of course, from the text name, is about meditation. And based on his idea, and of course also based on his teachers and the Greek master ideas, meditation has divided into 5 kind of methods. And then that's what they define a meditation. That time they didn't define the word mean like samadhi technique, samatha technique, or the concentration technique, or the vipassana technique, or the so-called the insight meditation technique. There's no such a very clear distinction, at least not in the text. Several of these texts have been translated. In Chinese, I saw it's not. But anyway, what he wants to say that, according to that text understanding, those people who have the nature, for example, when the people have the nature of anger, so he suggests that you should practice the loving kindness to start with. In other words, a person is liable to be angry easily. Okay. And then if a person has this kind of temperament, and in other words, a strong temperament of delusion, whenever you talk to them, yeah, doesn't know anything, almost like. Have you met this kind of people in your life? So, and then it's said that then you have to teach them to meditate on the dependent arising, 就是缘取观. If the persons have this kind of nature of always thinking a lot, thinking this, thinking that, they cannot stop thinking. And then the text suggested that, say, the person has to practice the mindfulness of breathing, about the breath, meditate on the breath to begin with. Okay? And if a person have this kind of nature, what else we don't have? The greed, sexual desire. And then it is suggested that he should start to meditate on the impureness. Actually, impureness, anyone know what it is? It's okay, I'm going to describe a little bit later. And if the one might be want to solve all the problem, or might be because the person had committed so great sin, great problem. And then according to the text, this what we call the meditation samadhi sutra said, that he has to practice the mindfulness on the Buddha. Okay. The word 念佛 is mean the mindfulness, the same thing. Okay. The mindfulness on the Buddha. And of course, in the text, I definitely, if you are interested in meditation already, I would really suggest you, especially you are Chinese, and you would like to know in earlier time actually what happened in China, since it have a big impact on the Chinese Buddhism in earlier time. It must be, at that time, it must be really, really powerful text and powerful method going on. Okay, now, from there, why, what does it, because, what does, I need to say why he want to say so. Now, sometimes when you practice meditation, I also suggest also, if you have difficulty meditate at time, especially you have been learning the breath meditation on the breath, I would say, you could just stay there with that. So I also somehow agree sometimes when you meditate, if you really have lots of thought comes to you, and it's so difficult to settle down that kind of thought, what you have to do, and especially the culture is there already, there are lots of people have learned the meditation on the breath, so you could just start with the meditation on the breath, okay? And then if the people are really thinking, oh, today I have a great sin, I did a lot of bad things, I don't know what to do, that's certainly given that you are a Buddhist. If you're a Christian, you're other religion, I don't think that you want to think about the Buddha, right? So, but if you are the Buddhist, and then you had a great faith in the Buddha, and then of course, then you could just contemplate the Buddha, okay? And then how to contemplate the Buddha, this is not my topic. You be your judge, go to read the text, okay? It has really clearly mentioned about how to do that. And then if you are having this kind of delusion mind, there are people like that. I do think that sometimes I really wanted to ask the person, so some person I think they have this kind of nature, and what they should do is that they should contemplate this dependent arising. Now I give a little hint how to do that. I'm not talking about others, but even myself. So maybe at times I get confused, not about the teachings, but I get confused about everything. Like my mind is not clear. So if your mind is not clear, of course you need to have a kind of very rational way to help you to make your mind clear, right? This is kind of like a logic. That's why you could just sit and then you start to contemplate or start to think, It is due to the ignorance. That's why we have action. I know this is difficult. And because we have the action, so that's why we have this so-called the consciousness. If that goes on, and then one will bound to be old age, and then also die. Okay, so that's what they contemplate that way. I know it's very hard for you guys. What is this about? But this certainly has to do with when you are practicing the Buddhism, understanding the Buddhism, because the Buddhism, the way the Buddhists understand, why we have this kind of reborn again and again. I mean, that is because we have ignorance. I'm sure you know this theory. But ignorance itself might not be necessarily will give you the force, the power to be reborn. But that it is the one that what gives you the power and the force to be reborn, because the ignorance can be implemented, on a certain way. In other words, means the ignorance can be implemented, can be put into action through your bodily action, through your verbal action, and through your mind, right? So, understand what I mean? Right? That's the reason why the cause of the action, the cause of the reborn is the action, and the cause of the action is the ignorance. Hello? Get it now? Now, this sound may be very simple, but I just give a little hint. Don't think so. Sometimes when you find that you're so confused, now, this is the first step you need to do, and just sit there to think. So the cause of the action is the ignorance, and it's due to the ignorance I have the actions. You just have to just wrestle this again and again and again and again and again. Somehow, you'll be surprised. Then you'll find the answer. Now no wonder I will have old age and death. Okay. All right, I'm not going to give the answer. As I say, you play the trick, okay? But that's an interesting thing. At least you would come to understand one thing. Why actions has to do with ignorance? What about if I don't have ignorance? And then does it mean that I don't have action? And you will find the answer yourself, okay? This is actually in the old tradition that when someone are really confused, because what we call the dull, I think I forgot in American English is the type of person. What do you call that kind of person? I don't know. Really kind of like stupid, or not necessarily all stupid. Sometimes they are very slow thinking. So you need this kind of dependent arising theory for them to think. Keep on thinking. And that thinking itself will generate a samadhi, a concentration also. Of course, in Pali tradition, this it's been gone. There's no such a way of teaching. But at least it's interesting, Kumarajiva text have mentioned this. All right. Now, if a person have a lot of this craving, maybe even it happened to you too, when you're sitting here. So, and then somehow you just feel the lust come. You feel the craving come. So, traditionally, if once that comes, you have to start to meditate on what we call the impureness. Now, I'll give you one little hint, and this might help you even sometimes when you do meditation. So when you're sitting sometime, you just don't know why, you just feel, I cannot sit well. But one other way to help you to do this, you have to think about your body. But definitely you cannot sit well, maybe it has much to do with your body, you don't know what. And then you need to direct your mind to your body and think, okay, I have this, especially try to think something you don't like, because you are not going to practice the full of this. So say that you have this, it's called visit in English, how to say? Physics. How to pronounce the word? Physics, you know. Do you have the physics in your body?
Physics? Yeah, crap.
So you do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you think that I have a physics inside here. Is that wonderful?
It is. It's just natural.
If you think it's natural, next time when you eat, I should put some on your plate. No, I want to say, yeah, of course it's natural. It's a way actually, or let's say that you also think about the blood, right? And then you could think about the blood, the urine. You have the urine, you have the blood. And then all these kind of, like you have snot, right? And this kind of thing. This is certainly, I'm not teaching this because especially this is only for the monk and nuns, in old day when you do meditation. That's why, that's how you can put away your desire. Because if you see a beautiful body, you've just been entrenched by that beautiful body. So if you can just think, there's a feces there, there's a snot there, there's a this, there's a that, and then the desire will go. Even though whether he's the most handsome or most beautiful person in front of you, of course, you may have more challenge, but you know, so that's all. But now, here the interesting part actually is, if you could do this way, what happened? I want to say the result. I'm not here to describe, it could be everyone is different, but the result generally, when you think that I have a feces there, I have the urination there, my body is not necessarily as beautiful as I look. Inside is horrible, right? Beyond the skin, inside is horrible. And when you understand one or two, somehow, you don't know why. Maybe you can try a little bit later tomorrow, if you want to. You don't know why, you just feel really, my soul settled down, okay? Okay, that's what I mean by practice in pureness. At least that helps you not to think too much, something going on, you know, that makes you very difficult to settle down your mind. Okay. All right, please also, since you're a layperson, I'm not here to teach this method, and usually we don't teach this to a layperson for like a full method of it. Otherwise, then you will say, okay, I don't want to get married anymore, then I will be in trouble, okay? But anyway, but at least you know something like that, it quite helps you sometimes. Because don't tell me that you don't have this challenge. You know, all humans have this challenge, especially if you're rich, okay, right? We always believe that when a man is rich, a lot of women will attract to you. But I think it will be the same if the women are rich, also a lot of men will attract her. Not because attracted to your physical is, you know what I mean, it's something else. Maybe yes, physical too, I don't know. So, but you know, okay, fine if you're single, but if you're married, then you need to learn something how you should, you know, keep your mind to be clean, you know. Okay, it's a very practical question. Now, I need to back to our main subject. And the other one that the Buddha, that the text will mention, say that for people who actually have the anger, they should practice the loving kindness to start with, you know. Here, he wants to say the anger means the person have liable to anger, very easy to get anger. So, I think the rest I'm not going to say because you are practicing now. So, like I'm reading something like, telling you. Certainly in the text, it's generally wanted to say that, you know, if you're practicing this, the same thing like what we are also, very similar to what we're doing, that you need to divide the person into different groups, you know. And then, but one point I really like it here is that because if you practice, once that you are practicing well on your loving kindness meditation, then your joy really comes to you. When the joys come to you, even when the persons that maybe normally you think that person is really bad, like a murderer or such a bad person, you still could do the loving kindness without any difficulty. Okay, and then of course that's why there's a kind of asking and question by itself. So how do you treat about this thing? How do you understand that? You know, how can you say, the person is doing the bad thing, but you're still doing meditation on a loving kindness, but you still observe that and you feel really pleasant. So it sounds like ethically it's wrong, right? Hello? I remember once I went to a place. I was in a synagogue, been invited to a synagogue, and then to generally mean to explain something about Buddhism. It's a very hard subject, it's a very difficult topic, because if a theistic religion, maybe much easier. You just want to say how you think about the God. But Buddhism is almost like a philosophy. There's so many things to talk, you don't know what to talk to begin. But anyway, so lucky that I think the guy, the rabbi is very nice, and he was kind of guide me. Otherwise, I really don't know how to start with. Anyway, so he was talking about in this kind of like the Judaism tradition, how to think about the love. Okay, then that is good subject. And I knew what I should begin to talk about, how Buddhism think about the love. To his surprise, actually, after that, when I give the talk already, and he was, to his surprise, that looks like Buddhism, when you talk about this kind of loving kindness or the love, is in the radical sense, right? But what does it mean? Don't you think so? Think about that when you heard the story. One of the past life of the Buddha, he was a practitioner in the forest, and then one of the king, called Geliwang, I forgot in Pali word or Sanskrit, but he came, and with a lot of beautiful attendant, or the, what they call concubine, something like that, okay? And then because that the past life of the Buddha, he was practicing there, and this kind of concubine in the garden, or in the forest, or in garden, you would say, and saw that this practitioner there, of course they're very pleased. So they all surrounded this ascetic monk, and maybe asking questions. Anyway, they feel joyful and talk to the ascetic monk. So when this king wake up, he saw this scene, he was jealous tremendously. And of course, his anger was over on his top. What he did is that he went to torture this ascetic, because that's what he believed, that this ascetic actually is flirting with his concubine, right? Anyway, for sure he was really jealous. And then the famous story is that, and then he's not only killing him, just shoot him right away. He just piece by piece to use a knife to cut his flesh off, Imagine that. That kind of torture. And according to this kind of radical theory of Buddhism, is when they cut his flesh off, what that the past life of the Buddha was, he only just sent the loving kindness to the person. So, and he rather let him to kill his flesh than he would just allow himself to arise one of the hatred in the heart. Don't you think it's extreme? In the West culture especially, wow, how that's really, okay. But anyway, of course, I have to say, because I come from the East, and because that's the kind of story you always overheard many times already. I never thought about it become extreme. It's a really radical term. I only think that, that was wonderful of the Buddha, but it's none of my business, basically, right? And then now, I guess why this is interesting part here, why they think it is a radical, and why I don't think it's a radical. This is my question. Why? I don't know, maybe, I hope that you have something in your mind. Since anyone want to give, why, if that's the case, okay, maybe best. Anyone have the same idea like me? That when you hear this story, you think, okay, that's it. Anyone here? You have the same reaction? You do. Tell me why you have the same reaction.
I think if you're in the same kind of mind,
in other words, you have a kind of faith to the Buddha, and you believe that he could do this. Okay, so in other words, you're thinking because of emptiness and there's no self, so he could do that way. So in other words, you have a faith to the Buddha and understand the Buddha have this kind of power, and you also believe that kind of power will help him to be over that. Okay, and Yeah, that is also one of the good answer. But I think one way is that then why the Westerner, so-called Westerners, say that the incidents that just now I say that those people there, why they think that's a radical case? Okay, his explanation because there's a philosophy to self. Okay, all right. Now my next question is, what if I think, can you do it? All right. So if you first think that you wouldn't be able to do it, and do you agree this is the too extreme when people going to cut the flesh, and that someone still have the loving kindness to them?
I think I can understand sometimes why people do it, but if in reality I see someone do it, I won't say that I won't say I have the courage to say.
Not to say. I mean, okay. That looks like you're also almost similar to my reaction. I like to hear how about you. What do you think? If you hear that there was a case about a person, even though he was, the king going to cut his flesh piece by piece. The pain, of course, is beyond imagine or beyond, description. But that person, the practitioner, the ascetic, still have to practice a loving kindness, not allow himself to have one little of anger comes out. What do you think? If the story comes to you. Oh, you want to say okay? Yeah, please.
I think it illustrates and shows us that this is not a quantitative issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is a qualitative issue. In other words, there's no such thing as a limit. If we're talking about equanimity together with loving kindness, then ultimately our goal is to experience it in a total way, not excluding anything, which goes back to no self. Whether or not, I mean, if you ask me whether I could do that or think that someday I might be able to do that, I would have to say to the first question, no, and to the second, I don't know. But I think that's our goal ultimately.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, that's a good question, a good answer. Yes, you want to say something like that?
If you were trained as a saint, you could do it.
You,
A saint?
If you're a stream enter, you don't have anger.
no, stream enter have anger.
Still?
Only the Anagami doesn't have anger, but the stream enter still have anger, and Sakadagami also have anger. So, all right. Yes, you want to say something? Yes, please. Yeah.
It's just, that sort of story is, I don't know why Westerners, in the sense that you put it, would be surprised or would be, because in the Western world we have the example of Jesus, who gave up his life to save us, to save us from our sins. And he did not have one drop of anger or resentment. On the contrary, he was generous and compassionate and asked for forgiveness for the ignorance of those who flagellated him. So I don't know that I would be able to do that. I don't think so. That I'd be so forgiving and so compassionate and so open-minded. But one thing I know I would do, because that's my reaction right now when I see something happening that's hurting me in some way. I just I send loving kindness and compassion to that person, because I think that poor person is building very bad karma for themselves, and they're going to pay for it.
Okay.
And I
But that is the rabbi. I don't think the rabbi would really agree what you described Jesus story. So that might be the difference.
No, she was just trying to say it was because of rabbi's reaction, not basically a rabbi may have a different way to look at the thing. Yeah.
And also probably for us, people from the East, we sort of got used to hear such stories that we sort of distinguish us from the Arahant or Buddha. We know we don't have those qualities. We just, maybe I can't speak for others, but I would say, so because that ascetic was going to be Buddha.
So that's why he could do it.
Yeah, he could do it.
Okay. Yeah.
There are two ways to look at it. One way is you treat it as a mythology. One way is just you actually believe this actually happens.
Well, I mean, of course, I think you had to believe it in Buddhism that actually happened.
So let's assume it actually happens. Then it's like, okay, is it possible? I think it is possible. And because I think this is in path of purification, it says, when someone has hurt you, why do you want to hurt yourself again? Like, you hating the person does not make it any better. Why do you want to bring that onto yourself again? And if Buddha or that ascetic at the time do have this wisdom, like, I mean, he has to endure what he must. Like, it's not out of his choice. Like, he's getting killed, he's being tortured. He cannot get out of it. And hating him doesn't solve the issue. So what he can hold on to is what he could.
What I think is very important for his morality, his virtue. Right? Because somehow he had to die already, so he had been tortured. Okay. Should I try to torture you a little bit next time? I'm just joking anyway. You want to say something before I need to go on?
I just wanted to say that the audience, right? It's like you say, why were they shocked? I think in the Old Testament, the God was like a wrathful God. In some cases, he punished a lot, and I mean, I think anger is not uncommon in the Old Testament. So to think that someone wouldn't show anger is strange in that situation.
I think my understanding also, at least that's how I learned, not necessarily correct way. Sometimes I remember just a very similar issue, but it's not this story. When I was in England, so I also sometimes been invited to discuss or talk something in the chaplainship, in our university. So, and then also sometimes we come to this discussion. I also question something. And they also told me that actually to them, the passion itself is also, passion and anger sometimes can be goes together. It is because you have this kind of anger, so that's why you have this passion. I mean, this is very interesting because I also somehow agree with that too, because now this is how it comes. When you have a passion, do you really, you know what I mean by passion? Do you really must have the anger and to have a passion? Okay. So of course, passion is a good term. Anger is not a good term, but anger could be transformed as kind of passion. So, for example, one of the person told me that when Jesus was found out that, so he was invited actually to go to a place, right, in those, of course, in Israel and whatever. I don't want to say too much because it's not my subject, but generally and then he was not really happy. Not happy is my word. So he was really that, and he was just like pushed down all some of the things there. And because and they say this is actually show the passion, because no one understands what he's trying to say. So that's why the passion will motivate somebody to be a missionary also. Kind of missionary have to do with the passion. And as I say, that sometimes disagree with something and then arise a certain like anger. So it also will give rise to the good passion too. Like you must have the passion to do things because you disagree with the injustice coming on. Okay, I'm sorry, because I just want to bring this. I don't mean to give an answer and solve this, but it's always maybe very nice to think something, about this issue. But now I want to back to the Buddhism. It doesn't, there's ideology in the Buddhism at least. The ideology of the Buddhism, and that also mentioned in the text here, the ideology of the Buddhism is that it's believed that no one can actually, basically mean you cannot solve the anger by anger. So you can only solve the anger by not anger. So that's I think is a very fundamental Buddhist understanding. And this verse actually been put in the practice of loving kindness meditation. It's because sometimes when we do meditation, or even in our lives, I just I put an extreme case. But say that in a very normal case, the same thing, where we feel unfair, we feel, not really you cannot be justified something that people, the way they treat you, or because whatever, the way that how a system treated you and so forth, And then in the Buddhist philosophy, it sounds a little bit passive in some way, that you had to be, you had to be really kind of like, cannot raise the anger, because the anger will not solve the anger. Now, I have to say this kind of become in my understanding, even I wasn't a Buddhist, I know this kind of Buddhist attitude, even I never know this statement and sentence. And this is how I usually, before I become a Buddhist, this is how I usually look at the Buddhism, the Buddhist people. They are really pacified, and they are really not doing anything. They are just like insect, a worm, very weak, I don't know this sentence. That's how I think. Because, put it one other good example, I have many, but I started to remember in my mind is, when I was studying in England, at that time, one of the person actually were very angry with me. I don't know why. Later on, according to his understanding, because he has failed his examination, and he was so down, and what he did is that at the end, he was walking on the street, and someone tried to teach him the Christianity, and he told him his problem, because he failed his exam, he won't get his degree, or his master degree. But he will be very shameful if he go back home, So, and then the mission told him that I could help you to find a lawyer to sue, to sue that the department, and so forth. No. To put a lawsuit, the lawsuit, to put a lawsuit to the department. But anyway, so of course he talked to his good friend, and his good friend is my good friend. And then the good friend was disagree with him. He said, "You didn't study hard. You didn't really work. You deserve that. Why you want to do this way?" And he said, "Why don't you go to see Dhamma, that see me, and see how it thinks? To see that monk? No way." He said, "The monk will of course telling you that is your karma, okay?" That is your karma, so don't you think so? And maybe we tell you, he say, he knew everything almost, like he say, then not only because it's karma, he would say, you are lazy, that's why you get this result. Just eat it, that's it, He didn't want to. And it was interesting, that was a reason why he been converted to be a Christian, very strong Christian. Now he's really strong Christian now, Because later on, because that happens that they really want to find a sue to that department. And the department didn't want to deal with this problem. That's why, okay, just a master degree, fine, just give it to you. So he got it, Yeah, don't, this kind of, if you do in university, you always heard this kind of story, it's not surprised sometimes. So I want to say this, and at that time I was thinking this really serious. I thought, if he come to see me, but actually the interesting part is like that. My friend asked me, what you would do if he come to see you? I say he could see a lawyer. Not that I want him to win the case all the time, but if he think that there's injustice, the department didn't treat him well. In the university, actually, we do have the free lawyer for advice for the student, at least in our university at that time. So he could go to, see the lawyer and to the case, and whether he could see if there's any amendment he could make, not without any effort he put, he could see whether amendment, he could make so that, fine. Anyway, now this is the image also, how I used to talk about Buddhists, Now, today, what I want to revise this is, now when we practice the loving kindness or this compassion, this meditation, are we going to be this way or other way? What does it mean? It means in our theory we know that anger cannot fight with the anger. So, and we know we want to take this seriously, how we can solve this problem. Yes, we cannot do it. But I think we need to really look at it this way, that we must really have a strong ethical understanding if we practice a force of line abiding. Now, today, for example, if today you come to talk to me, you are very angry, okay, and then what do you suppose me to do? What if suddenly I slap you one? No, you don't know my question. Actually, this is very important. We always try to project some image, okay? I want to put it this way. I guess I'm like this. If today I'm a student and I go to see my teacher, and then I really make the teachers very angry, whatever reason, say, do a lot of bad things, and they're very angry. And we confronted to each other. And suddenly the teacher was so angry and he slapped me. So how you will understand the situation? I think if in the West, right, you are in a normal family, of course you are not happy, this was for sure, nobody have question about that. But then you will forgive it, because you know that he was furious already, right? Okay? But unfortunately, if you are having this kind of belief in a Buddhist circle, if the teacher slapped you already, what you will do? He's the worst teacher I have ever met. Right? Am I right? No? So that comes to one important topic is about our mind. How you project a thing, which through a kind of philosophy, and then when that kind of projection befell you, and then you were completely disappointed with the whole thing. Okay, that's all right. I need to move on. Give it to think something, okay? So of course, philosophically is that when we practice a loving kindness meditation, the best is that, even in one of the texts say that, if somebody uses a saw to cut your flesh, and then you need to be still send your loving kindness. Don't show you one of the anger. Like, the horror movie, what is that? Saw, horror movie, what do you call that? No, not Saw, that kind of guy. Or Texas what? A Texas. Like, huh? Oh, I see. No, I mean the Texas Chainsaw, like that. They use the sword to kill. Because in the Buddhism, of course, there's one text say this is because of some dispute happened, and then the Buddha, because the dispute happened, and the Buddha asked them not to be. Basically, the Buddha tell the monk, "What did I promise you when you come here?" He said to learn the teachings. So then the Buddha said, if that's what you want to follow, then you need to follow the teachings. And then he also, because that monk, he showed his anger, really anger, with a lot of people. That's why he say, then you shouldn't actually show this anger. Even though you know the teaching itself is if somebody use the sword to show you, you still have to send off your loving kindness. Yes?
Just for a real life example, something that happens in the West from time to time. After someone gets killed, the parents or the spouse of that victim, turns around immediately, forgive the killer. Is a good example of, practicing the loving kindness.
I definitely believe that it happened too, but sometimes when I read the news, it doesn't relate to your news, maybe not, maybe yes, okay? Sometimes when I read the news, I also remember once I saw something like that. Sometimes people say that, not necessarily truly, so they maybe get really angry. I don't mean that you are saying is this case, but we also understand sometimes people they get angry because since this is he has a certain position already, what he could do is only say the good thing, right? But it's not totally resolved in the mind. Yeah. Okay, that also could happen too. So, yes.
Yes, I think it's troublesome when you're talking about the example that he just gave. It sounds like it's something filled with social injustice, and there is a certain, what do you call, righteous indignation that comes with witnessing social injustice. And the anger is one thing, and violence is a whole different thing. So you could be angry and yet not be violent. You could be angry and not be injurious. You could be angry and be forgiving, even in spite of the anger. But the anger has, the reason for the anger is because there is a social injustice that needs to be corrected. And unless there is that impulse, that motivation, it's not going to get corrected.
And have you ever thought about one thing? So let's say now you're doing meditation and you're doing quite okay, and you start to think about the social injustice and how your reaction. Yeah. But when you're really, sometimes when you're really in a very different kind of mood, and then when you think about the social injustice, how's your reaction? Okay.
Well, me personally, I guess it would be something similar to what, because that's my character.
Good.
And so
There must be still there's a difference too. What are the difference?
what are the differences?
Like you say, maybe the two reaction is the same. That is that you still feel the social injustice, right?
Yes.
But then you must, then it couldn't be the complete same, or you think it will be completely same in many ways.
Oh yes, it is sad.
It will be the same.
The same.
The same, yeah.
Yes, it would be, I think I would consider social injustice, and I would react to it in the same way. Except that here, I am in meditation, and I
then?
can't do anything about it, but when I'm out there, I will go and I will take action.
You will take action, but do you think your mind will be the same? The quality of the mind will be the same?
It has to be the same because it has to be clear. For me to take correct action, I need to use correct speech and correct thought and right view, and then it has to be clear. So I think
that maybe I have a little different opinion. Okay, I think it's that, I guess this is what I want to point it out. In the Buddhist ideology, we might have a very extreme case as our ideology, okay? To a lot of people, it's extreme case. But we have to look at that kind of extreme case as not giving this anger out, must be the great value there. The great value is, it has to do with, from the Buddhist tradition, that's what I believe, they must be always have a way to teach you how to solve this anger. But you really have to deal with the anger issue for really a deep, up to the point that person, whatever way they treat that person, still they understand giving a little anger is still too bad for the practitioner. And for that kind of thing, for that kind of value, I also like to bring it in an ethical way, like you say, if once that person feels that there's a social injustice, he also will learn, or he or she will learn that. So it's the first thing is to solve his anger issue. When the anger issue, because sometimes when you know the social injustice, it could come to you get anger, because you feel unhappy, feel unpleasant. So, but could that be, this is my question. I thought I may have an answer, but of course, I like to raise it up. Like, could that be that person still feel the social injustice, but the heart would not have anger? Okay, and if the answer is a yes, then the Buddhist ethical value, the statement about practice of loving kindness, with what the Buddhist ideology thinking, anger cannot conquer anger. One can conquer the anger is only when there is no anger. Then that statement can be universal. If not, then the statement is only just be conditional or partially applied for a certain situation. But since I'm teaching this method, not that I can do it, don't kill me, okay? Don't torture me. But I think it's really still need to promote this idea that actually we can, like you raise a good point, like the social injustice. But if there's an injustice, certainly we could, give the voice or even have to implement in action, right? But with that also, we must recognize as a Buddhist practitioner that we are serious about this, and then that we also have to learn how to put this anger, remove the anger, because you could do this social injustice with a compassionate mind, right? And then this is also why then the Buddhism have this ideology. When that compassionate mind becomes so strong and so powerful, that also involves some of the people giving the answer, that definitely that will lead someone to understand the no self concept or the emptiness concept. So then they will help them actually have this kind of really great social, impact for the society, a great society, but they themselves will not raise up the anger and distress and despair. And certainly that have to be in the great compassion, or the compassion idea, because you do this for that particular person or the practitioner understand, I will die no matter, fine. However, that is not only looking for I myself, but there are lots of people who will be suffered by that if they don't change those, when the people have those, kind of bad system or whatever. So I guess that's what it served. I want to point this is sometimes when we look at the Buddhist text, it means we are practicing this method, and then we must be questioning also whether this method become pacify. And I try to point it out, it's not pacify. It looks a bit in the beginning. And that will be also actually is a very important motivation for us to practice, is that I still can do my job, maybe even in a better way. But for sure, it's better for my mind and better for the other, because I'm not going to create this almost like playing emotional game to the people, right? So that they still can do their own justice, or of course many other type of work. And this itself is, I would think, is much worth for people to practice this method already. And I look at this sentence usually, I don't just think it because just a sentence or because someone is great. I guess sometimes if we take that someone is only great, then we actually have an excuse or we distance ourselves, distance ourselves to the fact that actually we should approach this way. So, okay, let me just finish the sentence a little bit. And then, of course, here, one other thing is very important in the verse after that, say, anger, cannot solve, dispel the anger, but only by when someone is not angry. And then when the anger comes, we must be able to recognize that as if just like a snake just hanging in your body, or the fire burning so like a fire or burning your hair, right? What do? Let it burn, right? No, of course, you need to really distinguish it. So, and that you need to really take it so, if you serious, that when you take it so serious that, when I serious, I don't ask you to be tense or become distressed or become anxiety. In other words, when you really look at how that can damage you, so that, like a snake, who wondered, of course, unless you have a pet as a snake, you know what I mean? The wild snake come to your body, you definitely want to throw it away. When the fire on your hair, and then you definitely want to distinguish the fire. So once do this way, and always practice the loving kindness meditation, and then this is how you could remove your anger. Okay. All right. Everyone wants to sleep already, but no matter. In traditionally, the monk and the nun had to practice this. Why? It's also there's one of the. It happened to me, and unfortunately, I didn't help some of my friends in the past, because I remember when I was a novice monk. Of course, I learned this technique. I never care. It's what it is. Very sissy technique. I always said that many times already. In those days, I didn't like it. And then, but some of my friends, when they grow up a little bit, they want to disrobe. They don't want to be monk anymore. Actually, sometimes the monks they disrobe have many reasons. Some other reasons I'm not going to talk, But to do with this, one reason actually very interesting. People don't know. If you have been a monk for 10 years, you might know somewhat. They feel guilty, especially in a certain country. They feel guilty. They're guilty of what? They feel guilty because they think, I'm just a monk, I'm not practiced very good, but every time the people send me the food to eat, they feel like, what did I do? But people are really good to me, but they think they are not good. So the young monk, and I remember the few young monks talked to me there a lot. And of course I try to persuade them that no, don't think it this way, think it this way, that way. Anyway, it doesn't help. At the end, they really disrobe, That's what I mean. Sometimes it happened for the monkhood. They might be disrobed. At least I know for sure a few people, and because they feel guilt, of that part. Not any other, it's just because of that part. And that part can be really torture them a lot. And that's even a torture at the point that when they see the lay people are bringing the food over, they just feel like ashamed so much, And they kind of like become the social way. I don't know, somehow they think that, they are almost like, they do nothing, they just eating, kind of like that. I think that might be one of the reasons why it's in the text here, actually in many other texts, it just quote from a Buddhist text to say that, So why we have to do the loving kindness meditation and so forth, not because of, it's basically not only just, we must understand, if you be given a lot of benefit, Why? Because the Buddha did say that, when somebody offering a good thing, what is the best way to return them? We know that the best way to the best thing to do is the person give you something. It's not exchange, right? Let's say if I want to give you some gift, that definitely ethically we know that not because I give you some gift, you must return a good gift for me, maybe even more expensive one, right? So this is all morality the same, that if I want to give you something, that means definitely I'm not asking any return. However, everyone when you receive the gift always have the guilty. What should I do, right? When I look at it, wow, this is worth so much money. I need to get return or, so whatever. Now I'm talking about in the Buddhist ethic. In the Buddhist ethic, they said for the monk, when people offering the food, offering the thing, supposing the monk don't have money in the old day, they are not supposed to even to handle money, whatever, and all sort of thing. So what they can do return. That's what the Buddha say. The only thing that you can return, you have sending them your loving kindness. So that is the best of the return. And then also, we wear the robe. I'm saying this because I follow the text. I also let you understand something. We wear the robe. According to we understand, when we are wearing the robe, we want to trying to work on one thing. That means we want our mind not to be contaminated. We want our mind to be pure. Okay. So if you see the robe, in order that sometimes, same thing when you come here to do practice. When you come here to do the practice, you must know that why you want to come into practice is because you don't want your mind to be defined. You want your mind to be purified, right? If you want your mind to be purified, when you do the loving kindness meditation, actually it is helping you to purify your mind. In other words, for a monk, to say that means you're wearing a robe, if you do the loving kindness meditation, you are actually worth to wear the robe because you want to purify your mind. So, and then because you are learning this loving kindness meditation, you learn the Dhamma, you learn the teachings. So not that you don't know the Dhamma, not that you don't know how to practice the teachings, so that you are living in the Dhamma. So, and because when you have this loving kindness meditation, for example, further say that when you have this concentration of loving kindness, so just like the Bodhisattva, wherever they go, they always just cool down themselves. It's almost like whenever person they met, they always cool their mind down. So that is the wonderful of this is how, traditional belief that what a practitioner should do. That means they always can cool them down, calm them down, right? Of course, you're not going to see a monk in tradition. Of course, it might be changed nowadays. That they want to stir you up. Yes, kill. No, not like that. It's always cool them down and calm them. That's a traditional way of understanding, especially in what I understand in Asia. Okay. I guess the last thing I want to say is that, and I mean, there's one more thing he would say that, and if you have this loving kindness, I mean, this is definitely addressed to the monk, and then you're as if like you have my English is getting worse now. The shade, what do you call that? 那个胆叫什么？挡箭牌哈 ，shield, yeah, shield, shield, yeah, the shield. So you have the shield. So once you have shield, of course, you are much protected already. Anyone people want to attack you, shoot you, whatever, you have the shield to protect yourself, And also, because of you have the loving kindness, it's become a stair for you. And then you can just, without the stair, you could never reach the top to go to practice, become the nirvana. That means the nibbana, the ultimate goal of Buddhism. So you need a stair to help you to connect yourself up to nirvana. Okay, well, I'd like to end my talk today. I don't know whether you like my talk or not, it's fine, I have to show, I'm just joking. But I guess I want to point it out, maybe this is topic is more appropriate for monk, but I would say that we must understand, practice the loving kindness. If you really, this is all actually from Buddha teachings. Why the loving kindness is not just, now it's very useful for my life, not only that. Even for someone who wants to renounce a life, okay, perhaps even though you are not renouncing life, it's also useful for you because it is actually the Buddha say, it is the one, it's become a ladder for you to climb up for the higher, Without the letter, you cannot be there. Or maybe put in a simple English. It's deep topic, but in a simple English is, if you don't have this preliminary, or what we call 加行道嘛，我们叫做 I forgot the English term. If you don't have this kind of base or ground, you will not able to practice. Actually, the normally here refer to understand the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so and that's what the Buddha says. So the force of mind-abiding is really not just thinking, oh, I'm practicing this because of this, or like yesterday I just mentioned, you might become the great king in one day, and so forth. But even it's also helped a person to understand, I may have no anything, but I have my love, loving kindness. That kind of love, even the people is worthy to offer them the food. So, but what they had to take care is just to practice this kind of love, so that they would not allow even the little anger, arise. Of course, it's very hard, but I mean, this is the idea that they had to go on that goal. And we must understand, I guess this is a new kind of calling, kind of like, we must understand this kind of people, if they really want to try their own life, whole life to try to do that, this person is worth to be, respect already. Now in here, the people are worth to respect. Imagine if you say, oh, that person he's such a great compassion person, very powerful, never anger, and he could, very wise and very calm, always cool you down. What the heck? Look at that person. He had Ferrari, big house, swimming pool. So where do you want to go? Of course, go to the Ferrari swimming pool and all that other thing. No, I mean, I don't mean, of course, okay? That's what I want to say. I guess this is even the same thing for the children. At least that's the way I know. Lots of parents, they tell their children, I have this and this. They forget to tell them what is most important. It's the mind, the heart, right? Okay, I hope that I make my clear point. Maybe I didn't put it very well, but at least I hope that will be encouraging you, not ask you to think, okay, actually I may be better to look for this Ferrari. Okay, right, last thing I want to say. I don't mean that you couldn't have a Ferrari, okay? It had nothing to do with the Ferrari, whether it's right or wrong, but I just mean the mind part is really, we must understand that. And even though we want to help the society, still very important that we must recognize that we always need to solve our anger also. That will always give you the pleasant and much more fruitful result too.
Does karma play a factor in determining whether you should sacrifice yourself?
What do I mean by sacrifice myself?
Your previous life?
You mean I know the word sacrifice, but I don't know what you mean. You mean the Buddha sacrificed himself?
To stop the cycle. Like you kill him, he'll kill you. The next life he kill you.
Yeah, just keep on. Yeah, but of course, that's what it's saying. If your anger ceased, maybe that person still want to kill you, but you don't bad, and that's why then in the next cycle, maybe after cycle, then you will stop that already, right? Yeah, because you don't give you wouldn't given any cause for the thing to be this way, Okay, all right. Thank you. Take a 10 minutes break and please come back here.